Hello and welcome to another episode of The Takeaway with me, your host, Munif Saza. Shortly, we will have Daniel Quijano joining us on the Closer's Corner, our podcast about closing real estate transactions. So, I just sent him the invite link. He is not late. I'm actually late. He asked me for the link about 5 minutes ago, and I was running behind. I was in a private lender meeting. We are raising capital for our Airbnbs, and so we sometimes Noah and I have private lender meetings back to back to give our lenders reports on how the Airbnbs are going, and sometimes to raise more capital for our projects. So we will sit tight here while we wait for Daniel to join us. And in the meantime, let's do a Q&A. Oh, there he is, actually. Maybe no Q&A. Or maybe we do a Q&A while we hang out here. Who knows? I'm going to be adding Daniel now. Hey, what's up, man?
What is going on, everybody?
Dude, I love your mic.
Thank you.
It's amazing.
Are you sure? See what I did there? Because it's a Shure mic.
Is that what it is? That's awesome.
A little play on words, a little double entendre. Fresh REI. Nicole, what's going on? So, dude, did you get my stream key? Are we streaming this to YouTube too?
You sent me a stream key. I don't know what to do with it.
You don't know? Really?
I have no idea how to use those. But we can troubleshoot if so. Our next one is on YouTube. I have no idea what to do with those stream keys.
Perfect. That works. This makes sense. So what's going on, Munif? You're out here. You got the full stash game growing. You're a free man.
Yeah. I'm a free man.
You're out here gallivanting, doing whatever you want with your time. Not sure how I feel about it.
I don't know. How do you feel about it?
I'm not sure. Does Manny Souza need to be policed, or can he be trusted of his own devices?
Who knows?
Who knows? Right? Who knows? This is to be determined.
Who knows? I'm so excited, bro. I used to dread my W-2 meetings because they were just like a reminder of the handcuffs, right? And like they were at 10 a.m. and they were whatever, right? Like we had one every day at 10, and I know like I have to be there every day at 10 o'clock for this meeting, and I don't have those anymore, and it's amazing. And it's just like I don't have to be on this meeting at 10. I can make breakfast, or I can read a book, or I can do something else. So yeah, it's fantastic.
Okay, so walk me through this, right? So I saw your post on Instagram where you were just like effective immediately. So did you just not give a 2-week notice? You just chuck the deuces?
Yeah, and there's a story behind that. So basically, they were not I was really sick. Like you guys remember like November and December. I was really sick. Like I wasn't streaming. We thought I had COVID and like all this kind of stuff, right? And so I took all my PTO, all my sick days that I've earned. I was there for 6 years, and I earned all this sick leave and PTO and all that stuff. And they didn't like that. Like, and I let my team know and stuff. I was like, I'm sick, guys. Like I need this time off. But the company I was hired with was not the company I ended up with, because we've gone through 6 different acquisitions and mergers since I joined.
Really?
Mm-hmm. And so the most recent company has really, really bad reviews. Like the holding company, it's like half of our management staff left when they bought us out 6 months ago. And really? I just stayed. Yeah. I stayed. And so one of the first things they did is like tenured employees, they took away like a lot of their benefits. Like one of the first things they did, and they made you sign paperwork, like all this like corporate stuff, right? And I really just didn't care. I was like, you know what, I'm going to focus on real estate. But when I got sick and my health was in question, they didn't like that. They were like they were like giving me a hard time, right? And so I was going, so there was a few streams where I had to cancel because I was like working it out with the company. I was like, guys, I'm sick. I've got like doctor's notes, like I got chest x-rays, I got blood work. Like we're trying to figure out what's going on here, because my cough is like, it's keeping me up at night. Like I'm not getting healthier. My lungs are just deteriorating. Like what's going on? We eventually found out what it was, and I'm getting treatment for it. But this new company that that bought us out was like they're just not empathetic. Like I didn't like them, right? And so they said something, they did something. I was like, you know what, screw this. Like I'm done. Like this is not how you treat people, right? Especially someone who's been working with you for 6 years. It's just not how you treat people. So I just resigned and I was like, I'm done. And I didn't give them notice. And I'm like, bye.
You know, it's tough, man, right? Because this is one thing. And so, you know, being a consultant, like it was my job to advise on things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so, you know, I've always had my opinions on it. I mean, I joined the military at 17. And contrary to the appreciation of the United States military, I was very vocal about my disdain for certain stupid freaking rules that were in
Yeah.
place. Like this, you got to make it make sense. Like I can't do this, right? So I wasn't built for the military for many reasons, and that's just one of them. Like I speak my mind, and it's a very stay in line. No, you do what we tell you, don't ask questions type thing. I'm just not built like that, right? So getting
Right.
into the job world, I've always like when I did have jobs, and I haven't had like I've never been a guy that stayed at a job forever, right? Johnny, 100%, man. Um, and so like when I would have jobs, I always was the type I would go in and I'd get like a lot of promotions and like in raises like within the first couple of months. It just always
Right.
happened, right? So it was almost always this weird thing inside of the job because you got the new people that are the old people who've been there for a while. Who is this guy? And then, so you have that thing. And then I'm growing fast. And part of the reason I'm growing fast is because of the way I think. And so they
Mhm.
like it at first, but then after a while, they're like, oh, well, maybe we liked that. We thought we liked it, but and so it just was always this thing and it never made sense to me. It's like, why would you doing things for the sake of doing things has never made sense to me. There's got to be a reason. Make it make sense. And so, like, as I got into doing my own thing, and then of course consulting, that was always this perspective that I put out there. Like, do things intentionally, make it make sense, and most importantly, care about your freaking people. Why is
Dude.
it so hard for people to grasp?
No, dude. So it's funny. Like my manager, the guy who I report to, um, he knew what was going on, and it was fine. And like he was like, "Hey, is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, like I'm really sick." But then the upper leadership got involved, right, at the holding company, and they're like, "Well, if Munif can take all this PTO and sick, like, do we even need him?" Right? Like the project's going fine. Do we even need him? Right? And just once that started being questioned, and like that started, my manager's like fighting for me, and he was with me when we kept getting bought out, and he's like, no, like he does good work, and we're doing good work here. Like this is like a not a thing. Um, but then once they started questioning that, I didn't like how it was going, and I was like, you know what, like this is BS. Like I'm not doing this, right? Like
Yeah.
I'm not gonna fight here and justify anything. Like I've been here, I've been getting promotions and raises every single year since I joined 6 years ago. I'm not gonna go here and like prove to this new conglomerate like I deserve. I'm like, screw this. If you guys don't want me here, I'm out. No problem. I'll leave.
Yeah. Yeah, there's just so much in that, right? And it just doesn't make sense to me. And you know, you look at the companies that place culture as a priority and value in their team, they always excel. They always win. And when that starts to decline, so does the productivity of the company, right? And I think one balance of that is I think it's finding the right team because let's be real, there are employees out there who are lazy as hell and they don't want to do anything and they
Mm-hmm.
won't milk things for as much as you got. And so I think that makes this environment where the corporate side says we need to focus on the bottom line. They don't care about us. Why should we care about them? And it creates this toxic cycle where
Right.
if you change the focus, right? And my hope is, and I don't know what you're going to build. My guess is that you will. My hope is anybody that's listening to this and, you know, with whatever endeavors that you do is just keep this as a priority, guys. Like if you're going to build a business and you're going to have a team member, always remember what it was like to feel like shit when you had to wake up every day and just make sure you go out of your way to create an environment where your team doesn't feel like that. Make sure that they love showing up every day. Make sure that
Yeah.
they feel ownership in this. That stuff really matters.
100%, 100,000%. So, like, just listen to your people, right?
Yep.
So, but yeah, I am
You're a free man.
free life. Yeah, man. I resigned. I never looked back. I don't regret it. I never will regret it. And it's just moving forward with new horizons.
Yep. Okay. So what's on the agenda, right? You've had the week. You've been doing a couple of things, I'm sure. What's it
Yeah.
been like? What are you doing? What's the plan? Do you have a plan? Are you focusing on tomorrow and playing it by ear? What What's your thought processes?
I wrote out 90-day goals.
Okay.
So I'm journaling, and I want to make a certain amount of money. I want to buy a certain amount of Airbnbs. I want to make a certain amount of assignments. I want certain metrics for some of my other businesses I have. So I have these goals, and I have health goals too, right? I have health goals. I have exercise goals. I have dietary goals. So I learned something about myself while all this stuff was going on with the corporate stuff and me like defending myself and like going justifying my employment and all that stuff. I was like really stressed out. I didn't have a typical routine, right? I was working, I was staying up till like I was using the daytime to like deal with this stuff, and then nighttime I was working on my business, and then I was sleeping into the next morning, right? Just because these days were just getting later and
Yep.
later. I had to break the cycle because it did that for like 2 weeks, and I'm like, man, I don't have this like great morning routine right now, and I can tell that I need it. Like I don't love morning routines, but I need them, and when I have them and I start the day powerfully, I am so effective, Daniel. Like I'm so freaking effective. I'll get like all my emails cleared and paperwork and spreadsheets done before like 7 a.m. Right, and like, but by the time it hits noon, I'm done with my work, and then I can spend the rest of the day fighting emergencies. Like I want to finish my work I set out to do before people are awake, because once people are awake, they create problems for me to solve, right?
Yeah.
And then emergencies arise during waking hours, and so it's like, man, if I wake up when everyone else does, and I'm just fighting fires, you know, it's very tough to get ahead, right? And
Yeah.
people stay up late at night and do it, and that's great. But what the challenge with that is, but I notice, at least for me, I have more creativity at the end of the night, but I have less willpower, right?
Uh,
Willpower is actually peaks in the beginning of the day, and you're constantly draining it. And what improves your willpower is sleep. Or there's science behind willpower, and it's they've tested it. And good sleep and good nutrition maximize willpower, and willpower is an energy reserve that just drains, right? So it drains. So after a day of fighting fires, sitting down and doing something boring but important but not urgent is very difficult, very very difficult, right? And you're fighting an uphill battle. You can still do it, it's just very difficult. But if you wake up early, say you create a routine for yourself, and then you have a slice in the morning to do these non-urgent, important, slow, boring tasks that you need to do, you'll find that you have more willpower to do them. And then emergencies, I mean, whether or not you feel like it or not, you're going to deal with your emergencies, right, as they come up. They're just
yeah.
things you deal with. So I think that's something I've learned about myself the past couple weeks. So last night I got like 3 hours of sleep. I was like, F it. I'm not going to get good sleep. Ralph is going to probably kill me when he hears this, but I got 3 hours of sleep. I woke up really early. I started the day off very powerfully. I feel great, right? It's just one night. I promised
Yeah.
Ralph I'd get 7 hours of sleep a night, because he's super into health and sleep. But
Yeah.
I needed it, man.
Well, and I think it's funny to know, right? Like, and I think this is where people get lost in this stuff. I spent many, many years trying to do that thing, and it never worked for me, right?
Mhm.
Because here's where I'm different. The willpower for me doesn't start like that. For me, I turn on at 11 o'clock. Like,
You're like Noah. Noah's the
I
same way.
is it really? Yeah. And
Yep.
so it's been tough for me because I'm at about 15 right now, Nicole. It's been a fun couple weeks. I did the math last night. It's about 15 for me hours per day. Um, I don't know if that's good or bad, right? So we'll see. But so yeah, like I learned this about myself. So when I went through this process, and we've talked about this in various situations where like I think knowing yourself is important, but then there's an evolution of that. And then there's life stages. These are all things that matter, and I don't think people factor. I spent many years um, trying to like do the morning thing, and dude, I failed miserably, and I felt so bad. And then it was like, dude, just be okay with who you are. And I
Yeah.
get this thing where I turn on at 11 o'clock at night. Like Yvonne knows it,
Yes.
and it's just like everything. It makes so much more sense to me than at any point throughout the day. Let's go, Randy. That's what I'm talking about. Um, so, and we got to talk about that here in a minute. But yeah, like for me, I learned that. And I just got comfortable with balancing that. But here's the thing, right? You got to realize there's a couple things that I'll throw out there. And I'm not a doctor. I've studied health for a long time. I'm pretty versed in certain ideas, but preface, I'm not a doctor, right? So take this with a grain of salt. I think there's a couple factors that people fail to realize when they hear these blanket sciences and things like that, because those things work. And if it works for you, listen to the science, because you've now found your path, right?
Right.
Follow it, right? Read the Miracle Mornings, do all these different things and make that work for you. But if that doesn't work, you got to ask a couple of subsequent questions, which is, okay, how am I built? How am I built differently? Right?
Mhm.
Listen to that and then learn what needs to be adjusted. So to that point, I've my entire life, since I was a child, I've gone to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning. Since I was in
Yep.
first grade, I was
Yep.
the guy in boot camp getting in trouble, sitting up in my rack when Reveille was at 4:30 in the morning. I was sitting up at 3, like, I don't know what to do. Right? That's just how I was. They're like, dude, what is wrong with you? I've just always been like this. So the whole, no, try going this, or try to eat, or try shutting off lights. Dude,
No.
look, that's great. Cute. But I've been doing this for 20, 30, 40 years.
Right.
Trust me, you know what I mean? But here's what I know, right? And this is where the choice comes into play. I know that with what I'm doing right now, there's got to be a time limit on that, right? Because my requirements in the past, I could do a lot of things. If I'm
Mhm.
building out systems and shit like that, that nobody else needs to be involved with, I can do that at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
A decent portion of my business now involves other people,
Yeah.
and I got to be available when they're available. So I have to ask this question, and I think me getting to a certain stage in life, I feel like it's getting easier for me to make that transition, but I got to start doing some steps to maybe kind of break this lifelong cycle. And so maybe it comes with doing some more of the stuff that you're doing, like just maybe I'm miserable not for a week or a day, maybe I'm miserable for a month until my body just snaps into this new thing I'm forcing it into. I don't know.
Well, everyone's built different, right? And so there's a theory, and I'm not a scientist, so don't, I'm not saying that it's super backed by science, but there's a theory that like human beings, we're all a little bit different, and like in a tribe, you have different people, and
I
you've got
love this science. I love this. Yeah.
right. So like different, like you've got somebody who's very coordinative with their hands and eye movements, and maybe they're probably really good hunters in the tribe, right? And then that those genes pass on, right? And so human beings, we're not all the same. We have different specialties. Maybe somebody who's really has a lot of intellect in the tribe, made certain decisions or built tools or whatever, right? So like, who's watching the tribe at night?
Yep.
It's the guy. It's the Daniel, like, who's just like everyone's like dying, like asleep, and then you've got the Daniel who's like, just chilling at 3, 4 in the morning, like making sure that other tribes or predators aren't attacking the village, right? And
Yeah.
so there's like, I think like people are built different, right? And there's those differences should be celebrated and utilized to their maximum capacity. I don't think that the Daniels need to be like the Manifs, or the Manifs like need to be like the Daniels. Just figure out what works for you. I just know, like, I get more
Yeah.
creativity at night, but I can't do boring things at night. I cannot. If it's boring, if it's not going to hold my interest, I'm not doing it at night. But I will do it in the morning. Like if I
That's
have a good
awesome.
morning routine, yeah, have some food, have some coffee, just, and I'm like, let's tackle it. This sucks. I hate boring work. I hate boring work the most out of all work. I'd rather do physical manual labor than like spreadsheets. Funny enough, because it bores the hell out of me. But I'll do
Yeah.
it in the morning. I will actually do it in the morning. I will never do it at night. I've learned that about myself. I
That's
had to
awesome.
accept that.
I love that, right? And like, so yeah, the A5 Invest, I'm the same. I tend to do on the weekends. Carlin Rose, she's one of my JV partners, and she's asked me, she's like, dude, when do you sleep? Because I'll send her messages at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, like just kind of wrapping up the day and things like that. Because that's why I do it. Like when I lay in bed, a lot of times is when I'm gonna sit there and I'm gonna send all of my text messages out that I didn't respond to. Like, so Pace gets up and he does it in the morning. I do it when I'm going down. Like that's how I unwind for bed a lot of times. And I'm like, oh, this, and this. And it's just like my brain does this nightly download. Like right when I'm laying in bed, here's all the things you forgot. Oh, shoot, let me respond to this person, right? And it's this automatic thing that's happened. I try to do the sleep on the weekends too. But recently that's been a little bit tough. But it's funny, right? I think, but what I love about this is that like finding a routine that works for you, evolving it as you need, because that's what you need if you want to be consistent, which is pretty essential to being successful in mostly anything.
Yes, 100%. You have to get the reps in. I'm listening to I'm listening to Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins, and he talks about getting the reps in. He's like, that's the single most important thing about anything is repetition.
Yeah.
And it's so true. It's so true.
Yeah, 1,000%. So the Kaufman diet, that's what I need you to do if you think you're ready. Kaufman diet. I'm telling you right now, I've done a lot of these things. I've looked at it. It's not for everybody. It would change my life. I did it for about 4 months, and I need to get back to it. It's just very, very, very difficult because it is a very clean diet, and it's hard to look at you. It's a very clean diet, and it's hard to find the foods that meet the requirements. So, I guess quick synopsis of it. It basically it's a mycotoxin free diet.
You mean mycotoxin as in myco
Mold.
means mush? Oh, mold free. Okay.
Mold free, right?
Myco is like fungus, but mold is a
fungus. Fungus, yeah. So it's essentially the right word is fungal, right? It's a fungus free diet, right? But not all mushrooms contain mycotoxins, even though they are fungi.
Okay.
So the mycotoxins are the pollutant aspects to your body, right? So quick synopsis of it. It's believed by some that there's a couple of core foundations to illness or lack of health in the body. One is inflammation, right? Anybody who's ever followed Dr. Sebi, he'll tell you it's inflammation, right? Get away from inflammation. You'll clear most everything. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. The other thing is fungus, right? Again, do your own research, not a doctor. But there have been studies out there that say that 76% of some cancers are actually misdiagnosed fungal infections because they mirror each other. Fungus and fungus overgrowth in the body can be linked to so many things. It's, more than just like athlete's foot or what have you, the things that we know about. Most asthmas, most allergies, most.
You got me at asthma allergies, bro. What do I got?
It's mold. It's 100% mold. That's all it is. It is 100% mold. You get rid of the mold.
Like the air?
It's mold in everything. So here's the issue. I started this, right? So we'll go out there. You guys, are we cool? We do a 5-minute rabbit hole on this?
I'm requesting it because that's okay. Allergies and asthma are like my two biggest killers. Like
same with my girlfriend.
I'm getting treatment for them because it's like my asthma's resurged.
So my girlfriend Yvonne, she got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes a year ago last week. Type 1 diabetes. She's in her 40s, right? Her family had it growing up. She never had it. It was a huge issue. In my head, I've studied health long enough that I believe that there are solutions for most of these things. I believe that our bodies are created to heal themselves, and the things that are on this earth were created to support that, right? People can disagree. That's fine. But that's what I believe. So I started doing research, right, because type 1 diabetes. Type 2 is pretty solvable. Most people agree with that at this point, right? Diet and exercise, getting certain sugars out of your body. Type 1's entirely different, right? So here's what's interesting. When you start doing the research, I was like, well, let's see, right? What is type 1 diabetes? Is it something that's curable? Most people say no, they're looking for this, they're looking for that, right? But we know it's an autoimmune disease. So when they started doing research, right? And I don't know if they still do this now, but when it originally started, you couldn't get insulin. Now you can get insulin. Right. There was a time 100 years ago you couldn't get insulin. So children would die extremely skinny and really malnourished because their sugars would just go crazy. Then they started testing, I believe, started with pig insulin, then it went to dog insulin, and then they were able to get actual human insulin and kind of convert that. Well, here's a question that nobody asks, right? Nobody asks this question. Well, how do we test new treatments for illnesses, right? We test it on animals. Well, here's another, like the question that nobody asks is, how do we find animals with the exact illness that we're trying to treat? Do we go and research a million animals?
No, we have to give them the illness, right?
We have to give them the illness. Do you
How do
know?
We give them the illness?
You inject them with mold.
Holy shit.
Now, I don't know if they're doing this anymore, but there was when they were testing type 1 diabetes and they wanted to give the animal type 1 diabetes to test if the insulin would hold, they would inject it with a specific strain of mold. A specific strain of mold would create the disease in the animal specific to what they were trying to treat.
There's no way we eat that mold in our food now, though, right?
Pause. So the question becomes, well, if you know that to give them the disease, you give them mold, and then you're trying to come with the treatment, maybe you just treat the thing that gave them the disease in the first place. What if you just treat the mold?
Yeah. So, but the mold's a bad thing to give them.
Correct.
Like it's like when we treat um one of my friends, Natasha, she's a cancer researcher, and she calls it inoculating, I think, where we give something cancer to treat it with cancer. And I'm like, poor rats, you're giving them cancer. And it's like, I don't know, I guess you have cancer, you can just inject it, right? But it sounds like for diabetes, it's like mold in a syringe and you inject it.
And from what I understand, originally, before they were able to synthesize the illnesses, a lot of the illnesses were variations of mold, right? Don't quote me on that, but that's my understanding, is that they started out with these variations of different types of molds. Aspergillus niger, which is black mold, right? Each strain of mold creates its own reaction inside of bodies. And those reactions were apparently trackable and traceable and predictable.
Yeah,
so
I don't want to do it anymore. Like, you got me like all worked up now, dude.
So I go in. There's a gentleman who I'll get the website and I'll share the link here. Right. He's studied this forever. He was a medic in Vietnam, got Agent Orange, got out, and then was going to go the medical route. Decided to not go the medical route. He got Agent Orange, found out some correlation with mold, and now he's a specialist in the mold world. He's not a practicing doctor. He's a specialist. So he goes to these worldwide things about how to be a leading. They're called mycologists, right? And he talks with these leading researchers, and it's becoming more and more accepted that this is a source of the issue, right? So as I'm looking into this, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, so how do I do this? What can I start looking into? I found this diet, and he actually gave an interesting thing. He said there's about, at the time, a couple of years ago, there was about like 1,300 studies in PubMed, one of the most respected medical journals that there is, in PubMed, that said that they did a test on people who were stage 4 cancer. Terminal. Nothing else can do. You got like a week or two left to live. That's it. They had gone through all the treatments. Nothing worked, right? This is PubMed. You can read these articles. Okay. As a last-ditch effort, they said, let's put them on an antifungal regimen, right? An extreme antifungal regimen. Fun fact, I believe that the side effects, the worst side effects of an extreme antifungal regimen are nausea, a headache, maybe a rash. Typical cleansing things, like if you did any other type of cleanse. That's what it is, right? You're not losing your hair. You're not going through all these things. Over 1,300 documented cases of people who were terminal, 1 week less to live, no cancer treatments work. They took some fungal cleanses within weeks, full remission, completely healthy.
Bro, what do we do? Like I was sold 15 minutes ago. What the hell do I do?
So I'll get the link and I'll share it in there. You guys can go check this guy out. He's got videos. He's got Facebook. He goes live twice a week, and you can ask.
What can you eat on his diet? Like what?
So here's the thing. His diet. Here's where it gets tough. This is where I'll wrap up, and which is where this really freaking scared me. Right. So we're like, cool, mycotoxin free. That works. No mold. Not hard. Don't eat mushrooms. Right. That's where my head went.
That's where my head went too.
So I start looking at all the things you can't eat. Right. There was a couple of them that scared me. There's a bunch of things that you don't realize that there's a couple. Here's this guy's link. His name is Doug Kaufman. I will send it into the Twitch chat. You guys can check this out.
You can't have spices, bro. I can't have curry.
No, you can have curry. You can 100% have curry. So what you do is you just look for mycotoxin associations, right? So here's a couple of things. Look where mold goes, right? Processed foods are going to be 100%, and I'll get to processed foods. But here's why. Where's mold moldy, right? So one thing, there's a solution for this. Let me put this out in advance. I will disclaimer this. Coffee beans are inherently moldy because they put them in these vats, right? What people don't know this, you can request there are companies that specifically sell mycotoxin-free beans. Fun fact, Starbucks doesn't advertise it, but supposedly their beans are mycotoxin-free. They flush it into
because I was like, yo, if I'm giving up Starbucks,
dude, I freaked out too.
I'm done. It's not happening. I'm so sorry.
Bulletproof. Yeah, I believe Bulletproof is mycotoxin-free. There are companies, you can Google it, mycotoxin-free coffee, because some people know about this. It is such an important thing that companies will go out of their way to remove mold from their coffee. If not, it just sits there. It sits in these vats, mold grows, but it's not that much where it's considered toxic, right? And so they don't say anything about it. So you can Google each food you're going to get when you're going shopping, X, right? It takes a little bit of time, and then you learn what you can and can't do. If you go to this Kaufman diet, he has a full breakdown of what you can and can't eat, and it's a good start. Here's what scared me, right? Because most of it's easy to find. Kaufman diet, for anybody who wants a foundation, it's keto on steroids, right? So if you can follow keto, this is a modified keto, right? There are grains you can eat. It's just certain grains, right? So it's a different aspect of, it's not keto, but it's the most relatable, familiar diet that people are familiar with, right? So here's what scared me. The two things that scared me the most. I Googled something, right? We were looking it up. Yvonne sent me a meme, and I was like, this can't be true, right? Something that's in probably 90% of the foods that we eat, citric acid, right? How many times have you seen some citric acid? Go to your fridge, go to your cabinets, 50, 80% of the stuff that's in there. No, vegan's probably one of the worst things you can do because most vegan food is processed. It's not natural. But citric acid.
There's a lot of vegans. There's some vegans that do
whole food vegans are different. Yeah. I personally believe you're missing a lot of nutrients. That's a whole different conversation. But from a mycotoxin standpoint, you can probably do it as a vegan. Yes. Because you can just stay away from the things that aren't. But the processed things that vegans do, a lot of those things contain them. So I'll touch on these right now. Citric acid. Google, and if you want to do it real quickly and share it. Matter of fact, do it and share the screen. Citric acid, black mold. Just Google it real quickly and tell me what you find. When I saw this meme, I was like, there's no way. And I looked it up, and it scared the crap out of me. Now, hold on real quick. We're in real estate. If a house has black mold, Munif, what happens?
Oh, it's like freaking condemned, man.
It's condemned. You cannot live in a domicile with black mold because of how dangerous it is. If we're in real estate, we know how severe that is. Black mold, citric acid. Did you pull anything up?
Yeah, I did. So there's this thing on Reddit. Today I learned. Can you guys see my screen?
No, it's blacked out. You have to do your login thing.
Oh, that's annoying. Hold on.
Reddit's annoying like that.
Oh, it's gonna make me log in. Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, it stays blacked out.
Well, we're not logging in. Okay, let's try this. Can you guys see the screen?
Yeah.
Apparently, citric acid is black mold.
So originally, citric acid was derived from citrus fruits, which is what most people think is still the case. What they found is they can extract a variation from it from Aspergillus niger, which is the clinical term for black mold. 98, 99, 96% of citric acid processed in the United States is derived from black mold.
Yeah, you feed black mold some sugar and you get citric acid.
Yep. So what do we know in 2022 about health when it comes to sugar? How destructive sugar is on the body. We go through these sugar cleanses, not realizing that if you eat something that has no sugar, but it's processed, guarantee you it has citric acid, because citric acid is probably one of, if not the most commonly used preservative. It's in everything. Everything. And it's still fed with sugar. But they don't tell you.
So is citric acid vitamin C?
It used to be. It used to be come from citrus fruits, but it's not anymore. Mass production made it not realistic, I guess, and so they went down the road of just extracting it from black mold. It's black mold. It's what it is, black mold. So think about this, guys. If we have a house that has black mold, you can't live in it, but you can eat it in almost all of your food. It blew my mind.
Look.
Go ahead, hit me with the contrast.
I don't like so sometimes for example, sodium and chloride, right? Alone, they're dangerous elements. You put them together, and it's fine. It's table salt, right? So my question is is it? Are we, if we're extracting the citric acid, even though the means we do it, the distillation process or the mass production process is toxic, I guess it is the distillation process fine? Or is it like, hey, even if it is fine, but you're like, let's say you're 99.9% fine, and then that 0.1% is black mold, and there's like trace elements of black mold, and it adds up and it freaking kills you, but it's cheaper, so we get away with it, like it's fine, like as long as it's in the
Which one do you
threshold.
think it is, Munif?
It's the second one. I think it's the second one.
So look at it. Follow anybody who works at a water treatment plant, right?
Okay.
Go. Here's a fun fact. In almost every state, this is going to work. If you guys have a swimming pool, you already have a swimming pool chlorine tester. If you don't,
Yep.
go to a swimming pool sports and $5 and buy a chlorine tester. Go home, right? And the chlorine tester is going to tell you if you have too much chlorine for your swimming pool, right?
Right.
And if you have this for your swimming pool, it's too dangerous to swim in. Test your tap water, the water that you shower in, the water that you use to cook your food potentially. For some of us, we use it to filter our water and we drink our water from the fridge, right?
Right.
70+% in most cities, your chlorine tester from your pool will tell you that the water you're cooking and drinking with has too much chlorine for a swimming pool to swim in. It's not safe to swim in. You would reduce the chlorine count if it was a swimming pool, but we still use it to cook with our food. Fun fact, refrigerator filters are carbon. They're carbon-based filters. It's essentially most RO systems are good. You got to make sure you have one that will remove chlorine. Not all will remove chlorine. Most filters that we have, Brita filters, most filters that come in a pitcher, most filters that come in a fridge, it's a carbon filter. It's perfume. It takes away the odors and the tastes of the toxins. It doesn't actually take away toxins. It just doesn't. You need at least a 3 to a 4 stage filter. Reverse osmosis is a great one. The downside of reverse osmosis, I believe, was originally created to remove salt from salt water so that military people could survive if they were dropped into the ocean. It takes such small particles that it removes even the nutrients. So mineral, like RO water is amazing for you, but because water attracts minerals, if you don't have minerals in your diet, the RO water will extract the minerals from your body and you'll pee the minerals out.
I read about that. The good RO filters, they add minerals back into the water.
You have to add minerals back in the water, which is why people freaked out because, you add stuff into Dasani water. Well, they were doing that. They were adding the minerals to replace the RO filter. And RO filter is the cleanest water, among the cleanest water you're going to get. You just want to have some sort of mineral supplementation to go with that. So that being said, I'm a nerd when it comes to stuff like this. I'm a nerd when it comes to a lot of stuff. Bottom line is, so here's the summary of all of this. Chlorine is everywhere, right? So if you go to but here's why. We know that chlorine is toxic for us. We know that chlorine in our showers is actually more dangerous than drinking it because our body porously absorbs more than we will through our digestive system. Our digestive system helps with that. But they consider it a clinically safe amount of chlorine. That's like saying I can drink 1 cap of bleach from my laundry room every single day, right? That's an equivalent.
I've been doing that since I was a kid, bro.
Since you were a kid, right? Which makes sense. That's why you get such a dope mustache.
That's why I lost all my hair.
So here's to summarize all of this, guys, right? Because this is a health podcast. But so going back to what you're saying, I think that's what it is. Like, what's a clinically acceptable, safe amount of mold that gets left in the food? And so what happens is some people, their bodies process it fine. Some people don't. And then over time, you end up with a candida overgrowth. Candida, if anybody's ever dealt with candida, if you have a white tongue, you have a candida overgrowth in your body, which means you have essentially a fungal infection. What is a fungus? Well, if you have mold in your house, if you get most of it, but not all of it, what happens? It comes back. It needs this much to survive. So if it is 99.9% safe, but there's 1%, that's all mold needs to flourish in a toxic environment. You add 1 or 2 dominoes to that. Now you have candida overgrowth. You have asthma. You have allergies. That's your body's manifestation of some sort of an issue, right? And so if you start looking into this, you can start to clear these things out. The second thing, so citric acid, extremely pervasive. There's one more that's actually equally, if not more, pervasive, and it's corn. Corn.
I can give up corn. That's fine. I'm not going to be upset.
Okay.
If you said rice, I would have been like, I'm sorry.
No, dude. No, so here's the thing. Correct. Christine is 100% correct. Candida, some people believe that Candida is the foundation. Candida and mold. If you get rid of the Candida in the mold, you'll get rid of eczema, psoriasis, almost all skin issues, asthma, allergies, all of those things. They go
Bro,
away.
I've had eczema, allergies, all that. You know.
So is it a coincidence? So here's a question. We didn't talk about this, Mooney.
And wait a minute. I had the a fungal like on my skin. I'd have these like discoloration, and I like I had to like put on like antifungal cream.
Okay.
And I have all those I have asthma, allergies, eczema.
So here's the thing. Let's see. Look, Christine. So here's mathematically speaking, right? You have an engineering and a technical and a scientific background. What is the mathematical likelihood that I'm telling you something that is largely linked to all of these things, and you happen to have all of them, and then it's just coincidentally created to this thing?
No.
More likely that this is.
Dude, fuck the math, man. I believe you. Like, what do I do?
Here's where it comes down to. So corn. Go to the store. Okay. If they have husked corn, and look what's on it. Without question, there is mold all over it. Go to a grocery store. Next time you guys are in a grocery store, see if your store has husked corn in stock. Yes, he is. I've been saying that for years. Go to the store, look at the corn, and you will see mold all over it. It's on the husks. It's literally sitting there with mold on it. We break it off and we think it's fine, but mold is a pervasive thing. It goes and it's very pervasive, right? So it goes to a lot of different things. So that being said, corn. People say, "Oh, I'll stop eating corn." This is the one that scared me. This is the one that almost made me. This almost made me wonder if this was intentional, right? I was like, okay, so we get corn out of the diet. More things in our diet contain corn than anything else, right? Go pick anything in your pantry right now, even something healthy. Pick 3 things, and I'm going to say probably the great majority, if not all of them, have corn in some fashion.
Like corn syrup.
Citric acid. It's not called, it has 100 different names or more, right? So guar gum, corn. Like you have gums that are in there. There's like 8-10 different types of gums that are in foods as a preservative. Out of those, 80% of them are corn-based. Not all of them. 80% of them are corn. If you see something that says natural flavors, it's corn, right? And then, of course, you have high fructose corn syrup and corn syrup, right? Those are the obvious ones. What scared me about this is when I started going on this diet, we were really adamant and we were searching. So when we put something into a cart, we looked at the thing, and if I didn't know what it was, I Googled it. And I would Google stuff, and it would get this weird no answer, like some of the gums. And I was like, but what is it? And so I started just randomly one day. I was like, something corn. And like 4 things down, you would see this study about how it was derived from corn or corn syrup. But it's just, you have to search for it to find it. And at that point, I was like, why are there so many things that are made from corn? And so for me, here's the reality. If our goal, so it goes back to this, how do you get mold from your body? You have to get things that produce mold out. And it becomes very, very difficult if you're doing what we do in Western society, which is go grocery shopping and buy things that are packaged for us. I got to the point where I realized that the only way to really do this is to find the few products that are clean and that are preserved in a clean fashion, or just eat stuff as it comes. Stay away from processed foods, right? A lot of meats, right? I like meat. I went to Ruth Chris one day. You know how Ruth Chris feeds their cattle? Corn.
So you can't have like corn-fed beef.
Corn-fed beef, it's the same thing because the mycotoxins that's in their meat will come into your body. The mold doesn't go away.
Question then, what about like the Native Americans?
What do you mean?
They grew up like they ate corn here, right? Like
there's a whole science behind that type of corn. The corn that we use today is so drastically genetically modified. It's not even close to the same. Plus, back then, why is it most of the mold that comes? Some of it is how we were correct. That's also true, Christina. But when you go into the way it looks now, these mass production things, a lot of stuff get lost. Native Americans, they used a different type of corn. It's completely different than what we eat now. And it was more strong and able to fight off certain toxins. But on top of that, they were more they policed their food much more cleanly than we do. They didn't put it in bins and let it sit on a truck and then go across country and all of these different climates and environments. So
Right.
it reduced that drastically. It's
Mm,
almost not comparable because of how different it is.
makes sense.
Yeah, but yeah, guys, like this is like a whole thing that was way more than 5 minutes, but it really scared me, man. And I'll tell you this, and I'll close with this. My girlfriend stuff, we'll leave that separate, right? What I can tell you is I have had really bad digestive issues most of my adult life. I've been in the hospital countless times.
Mm.
The reason I was sick at the most of last year
Yeah,
was
you're
because all of these things came back. I was out of commission. I was done. They didn't know what it was. They thought I had Crohn's disease and all of these different
all
things.
this
They couldn't
stuff.
yeah, and they couldn't figure it out, right? Um, Before I got super sick, 3 months prior to that, was when we went on this diet. And I realized something that I hadn't realized in years. So we have a sleep number bed, it reclines, right? And because of my digestive issues, I've had my gallbladder removed. Okay, so I'll tell you right now, this has been my life. I had my gallbladder removed. I had
Jesus.
appendicitis 2 to 3 times last year alone. Beat them all. Never. Thankfully, I still have my appendix because I was able to beat it naturally by fighting inflammation, and clearing out the toxins. So we did this 3 or 4 months. So here's the cycle of my life for years since we've had the sleep number bed for 6 years.
Yeah.
I recline, right? Well, what happens is if you sleep sitting up for enough time, your neck starts to get cranked.
Yeah.
So I have this cycle that I go through. I sleep for sitting up as long as I can, then my neck hurts, and then I lay flat. And I just know I'm going to be nauseous when I go to sleep and when I wake up, right? I'll wake up throughout the night because I'm just nauseous. I'm endlessly nauseous, right? Nothing I can do about it. Been on a million different diets, nothing I can do about it. Just nauseous. Neck hurt, nauseous. So I was a month into this Kaufman diet and was feeling great. My energy levels were up. It was hard to eat. We were just eating a lot of steaks, right? Clean, like organic, grass-fed stuff. Grass-fed and grass-finished are a different thing. If you get grass-fed and it's not grass-finished, they feed it its whole life. The last 30 days, they shove it full of corn. So you have to look for grass-finished. Yeah, that's what they do. They fatten it up. They gains like 100 pounds or 50 pounds. Some drastic amount of weight happens in that 30 days when they fill it with corn, which should say something, but I'm sure there's no accident. America's the most obese country on the planet, or for one of them. So when I was going through this about 30 days in, I'm laying down, my neck is hurting. I'm like, here we go, right? I got to lay flat. This sucks. I'm going to sleep for like shit for the next 3 days because I got to lay flat. Nothing I can do. I laid down, and for the first time in about 5 or 6 years, I laid down and was not nauseous at all.
Whoa.
And it was that moment I had gotten so used to it. It was at that moment that I realized it's been 6 years since I've been able to lay down flat and not get sick. Sam, you're adding no value to this conversation. What are you doing?
Sam is just confused. He's like, what are they talking? He's like, what does this have to do with real estate and closing?
Right,
deals?
exactly.
That's everything, Sam. Everything.
If you're not healthy, what can you do?
If Daniel and I are sick, who's gonna close these deals? I can't close when I'm sick.
So yeah, man, it was at that moment I was like, oh my God, I've gotten so used to this cycle. I forgot what it was like. Hi, Melissa, to lay down and not feel sick. And it was like this light switch in my head. And it was like, this is what it was. Something was pervasively ill in my stomach for months. And then I could feel the cleansing process, right? And then I used to have H. pylori really bad, which is miserable.
That's also a fungus. No, that's bacteria, right?
It's a bacteria, but so I went through it, and I asked the guy on one of his lives. He's like, "Dude, it's probably just your body cleansing itself out, right? This is the final, because if you're about 30 days in, this is one of the final things. Because you eat a certain way for 30, 40, 20 years, you're not going to clear it out in 2 weeks, right? It takes time. Love it, right? So yeah, it was one of those things where it was good, and then Yvonne ended up she ended up getting she was sick. She ended up having to have a surgery, and so her family came into town to help, and we just stopped eating like that because she couldn't, her family wasn't cooking like that. They were cooking their own thing, and then we got busy, and then we got distracted. We got off the diet, and that's when I got appendicitis 3 times, and I was out of commission. I was done.
Wow.
So I think I did when I was in the military. I did that for years. It took me about 5 years, but when I got out of the military, to be able to sleep on a bed. It was weird. I used to sleep on a bed and then I would randomly wake up in the kitchen in front of the fridge.
We've got to bring Christina on the takeaway one day because she's
Yeah,
like
100%.
she's a holistic wellness expert.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's what it is, guys. Like for me, I think it's all about balance, right? Like I think there's a Kaufman 1 and a Kaufman 2. The Kaufman 1's super strict, so you can cleanse all the stuff out. Do it for 30, 60, 90 days as long as you can. Then go to Kaufman 2, which is a little bit more balanced. But dude, like it's amazing. If you go to that guy's website, if you go to his Facebook page, it's a Facebook group. You see people posting on there, just the stories and the things that people have overcome. It's insane, right? And it gets really into brain stuff, right? You see people who do these big cleanses, and children with autism drastically are more controlled and able to sit down and function. Their brains aren't going everywhere. It's a domino effect thing, and the more issues you have, the more dominoes start falling, and it's hard to go back to
Question.
Yeah.
So my diet consists of mainly Bengali food, which is like home cooked beef, rice, chicken, with like tomatoes, cucumbers, onions. That's like my diet with some like eggs and potatoes for breakfast. So it's like it, and it's funny because like when I am not eating home cooked Bengali food, and I'm getting takeout, I'm getting Uber Eats. It's like something is off, man. Like something like I'm gonna look into this, right? Because like I feel like maybe the Bengali food doesn't have much of that stuff. Maybe it's got less mycotoxins or something like that.
Well, I think the foundational elements of those cultures, you guys just eat cleaner. Now, the source of the food here locally in the States is probably more processed, which is why you won't have the same effect as someone who grew up eating hamburger helper or ramen noodle soup like I did, right? But you're still not getting the pure version of it because it's processed, right? Like my dad, who still has a lot of health issues to this day. Unfortunately, he went to Venezuela for 6 months, years back, and at the time he had type 2 diabetes. He had all these different things. He had hepatitis. He was really, really ill. He was 6 months in Venezuela eating off the land because where he lived there was no processed foods. Everything was grown in the neighborhood. He lost like 50 pounds, was off all of his medications, came back to the United States. Within 2 months, he was back on everything.
So part of me is like, hey, if you had almost like making enough money to have like your own farm, sourcing your own food, farm with like maybe little to no pesticides, right? Like the pesticides are apparently like a huge problem. And it's like that's what my doesn't Zuckerberg do that? He eats only the food on his own property.
Really? That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, like the food and the meat, it has to be on his property. He's got this tons of property, and it's like only eats that, and it makes me wonder, like.
So there is. So right now, McDonald's isn't even food. Most fast food isn't food. So we're clear. MSG, corn, right? Like all of these different things, which you'll start to realize. I promise you, Mooney, if you do a cleanse like this, you'll never look at fast food the same way again. It's just your body will reject it like crazy. So my goal within the next year, 2 years max, hopefully this year, I want at least 10 acres. On that 10 acres, I need a couple of requirements. I need a landing strip for my own plane because I need to be able to go on my own. 2, I want a couple of greenhouses for this very thing, and I want to be able to have my own food. I want all of my food to be able to be self-sourced or self-sustaining, because that's how you have control. There is a whole new trend right now. What is it called? There's a word for it. But what they're doing is it's a new trend to start going back to growing our own food, because people are starting to realize how just miserably horrible and toxic for us the processed stuff is. Our body's not built to process chemicals, right? And so I think a lot of people get into veganism or vegetarianism or all of these diets because they know they need to feel well and they feel better. And this is just Daniel speaking in my opinion, right? So like my girlfriend was a vegetarian for 14 years. She had to stop because of all of the stuff that she was eating in place of meat was causing her more harm than the meat itself was, right? And so I think that what we don't realize is that a lot of the times when we feel better, it's not because we got rid of the meat or whatever. It's because we got rid of the processed stuff that we were eating. And, processed stuff and shitty food, sorry, including meat, is just as bad as us eating those chemicals directly, right? We wouldn't eat those chemicals on a spoon, but I promise you, mixing them with meat or whatever packaged goods you're eating is not improving that.
You've blown my mind. Christina says, I've lived on a farm for 5 years. I felt so good because we grew our non-GMO food, including chickens. We had a greenhouse before I went, it was a whole business before my dad passed in October, and I went full force into real estate. I'd give my left leg to be doing that again. I do. I want to have my own farm. Like,
Yeah,
you know what I
100%.
mean? Like, I feel like probably a lot of the way I feel, a lot of my sinus issues, my congestion. I'm very congested some days more than others. Maybe it's related to, like, they want to do surgery, right? They want to do surgery and like open it up, and it's like, I wonder if it's just a byproduct of what I'm eating and this mold and all this crap. And it's like, why do surgery when you can just change what you're eating, right?
And that's the sad part, right? Like, yeah, the Liver King dude, that guy's got to. Ingrid in sub 2 turned me on to him at the mastermind.
I've seen him on TikTok.
His stuff is interesting, right? He talks about how our body as humans actually probably wasn't really built to even process vegetables the way we think. And he's got really interesting science on that. You know, a lot of this stuff is debatable. A lot of this stuff comes back to knowing your own body. You got to have balance. You can't go all in different things. And so, what is this called? What is this?
So so so
HBC.
so question. So like, what if like, we start shopping from the farmers market instead of the groceries, instead of Safeway, whatever. We get our vegetables and our meats from the farmers market, and you can really accept. I guess rice would be the only thing we'd have to get from the supermarket, but
Yeah.
like, it's like, I wonder how much, you know, good we can do. Like, most of what I eat is home cooked, right? But it's very ethnic food, so
Yeah.
got my
Well, and the word I was looking for is called permaculture. Permaculture is the act of trying to develop ecosystems that mirror more traditional ways of growing self-sustaining food, right? Here's the cool thing about this, and we talk when I used to do consulting for, like, with city contracts and government contracts, you have a lot of conversations about sustainability. And there's all these grants and things that go around this conversation. But part of sustainability, especially from a small business standpoint, comes to being able to do things local. The whole buy local thing was meant to be a catchphrase that led to self-sustainability, creating ecosystems, right? So if you're talking about like the farmers market is losing out right now to trucked foods from other states that don't serve us. We even not even getting to the fact that, here's a fun fact. I don't know if you know this, Munif. If a person who has allergies, one of the first things that they can do, which helps a lot, I think doing this helps that much more. It helps remove it. But one thing that helps, did you know that eating local honey to the city or state that you live in will drastically reduce the allergens?
I've heard about it. I've never done it.
Yeah, and part of it is because the food in your own environment where you live is built for the environment that you live, which your body is experiencing, right? So it becomes this ecosystem. So you have small farmers building healthy food, losing out to big agriculture companies that are
Mm,
trucking in shit to us from wherever the hell they want to send it into us from. And so the good food is dying out and becoming inaccessible, and we're losing out to these big things because
we
they
gotta
can't
buy
compete.
local. We
If we
basically,
buy
it's
local
gonna
and we
cost
do this,
more, but it's
yep.
worth it. But then we okay, got it. All right.
Yeah, so it becomes a better ecosystem for a community standpoint. So I do think there's a lot of value in that. You get into some things where you start getting into the weeds as far as, like, how are they growing it? How are they watering their soil? There's different things you can look into. But the
Right.
reality is, start somewhere, right? Start somewhere with a core foundation. Like, to your point, first off, why not just try it, right? Kaufman diet, I promise you, I did it. It is freaking hard. It's not
Right.
easy. And the hardest part about it is finding the food. Second harder part about it is snacks during the day, right? Because a lot of nuts you can't eat. Like, almonds are
So
safe,
I
right?
don't
But
snack. So this might be easy. I only
okay,
eat twice a day, and it's just like meal, and that's it. Like,
then you'll be fine. I think
and
this will
it
be
might be
easier for you.
okay. I just might have to figure, basically source the food. If I can
That's the
source
hard
the
part.
food, which is the hard part. But if I can do it and spend the money, man, I mean, I'll try it. I think I
Dude,
mean, you've really opened my eyes here, and I think the chat could agree with me. Like, holy crap, we had no idea.
Yeah. And the way I see it is like, if you're willing to try, let's say start with 30 days, but even 90 days of saying, I'm going to just be miserably uncomfortable when it comes to food. I'm going to spend a little bit more money. It's going to be inconvenient, but let's just try it and see what happens. Imagine if it changes your life. Imagine if you all of a sudden notice I don't like my asthma is almost completely gone. All of my allergies are pretty much gone. I don't have any more of this skin stuff, all of these different things gone. I don't have to worry about that. I had eczema for 2 years out of the blue,
Hmm. Hmm.
right? Before I did Kaufman, I had done all kinds of candida, like light candida cleanses. None of them worked. It disappeared within a couple of weeks of starting Kaufman on its own.
I wonder what kind of antifungal things can we take too. So I'm sure if we take antifungal supplements or things like that, like
So there are antifungal supplements. If you have a doctor that you have a good relationship with, they can give you a prescription for something like it's called diflucan. Diflucan is a clinical antifungal. When those PubMed things, that's the types of things that they did. They actually work. They're not bad. You don't want to do that as a regimen, but it's a good shock to your system. If you got really severe things, it'll help. They cost $5 at CVS, but you do need
garlic. I eat a lot of garlic in my food. Christina says garlic. I'm like,
yeah,
just
you can Google natural antifungals. If you have a good doctor that's close with you, they may be able to prescribe you some things. There's like 3 really good, strong clinical ones that work. Those are the ones that they used in the cancer studies in the PubMed. They used those things, diflucan and those types of things. But then, yeah, it's a diet thing. Like here's the thing: there's 2 ways to get rid of mold in your body: kill it or starve it. Killing it is sometimes harder, but if mold has nothing to feed on, it has to die away. The problem is we're giving it things to feed on. Citric acid, which is black mold fed by sugar, is going to feed it. Sugar feeds, but that it will. You don't want to take it forever, right? But so you want some probiotics. But I think if you get some good probiotics, Dr. Ohira is one of the best probiotics that I've ever seen before.
you recommended the green stuff to me.
Green Vibrance is really good.
Yeah, I've been taking green vibrance.
Dr. Ohira Probiotics is really good. Their clinical one is insane. I took 2 one time by accident at night because I forgot that I had taken it. I was like, oh, these probiotics work, right? Like they really, really work. The clinical ones, the regular ones are good, but the clinical ones are way better. They're not cheap. They're $100 for a box. But again, you only get one body. You only get one, and if you're able to be twice as effective or productive or more energy, you've paid for it, especially in an industry like real estate. You got to take care of it, and for me, what do you have to lose? Try it for 30 days. Try it for 90 days. Worst case scenario, you lose a lot of weight. I lost 20 pounds the first 30 days and I wasn't even doing it to lose weight.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Guys, show Daniel some love. Go shout him out on Facebook. Go shout him out on Instagram. Go make a comment or a post if you learned something. I learned something. Like, holy crap. Like there's probably other stuff we could have talked about. We can talk about next week. But what we learned today, we can start using in our lives every single day, starting now. Like, I'm gonna go read the ingredients on my food packaging.
Please send me pictures. Please send me pictures if you see something that's associated with corn or citric acid. Please send them to me. I promise you. Like, I just want to see how many pictures before I get the WTF text message.
Yeah.
When
Okay.
it hits you, and it's like, what? Like, it's a paradigm shift for real. Here's the link, guys. If you guys want to check out this guy, he's the biggest wealth I know. I'm sure there are other people, but this guy has his diet. It's called the Kaufman diet. It's a specific diet meant to eradicate. And he's got cool things. So for people who have things, if you want to go to he has like desserts that you can make, and like little coconut, things that he has a lot, like some of those desserts are actually really good. And so for people who have cravings, it helps to balance those cravings out. You may not, right? If you just eat 2 meals a day and you're good, then it'll be simpler for you. I'm a snacker. Like, I'm always snacking. And so that made it really hard for me.
Yeah. So Ralph said something. He said he had a candida growth years ago, and one of the probiotic studies show helps with yeast mold in the gut, and that's called Saccharomyces boulardii. I read about that, and man, like, I read like sugar, like all the sugar we add to our diets feeds the yeast in our gut, and then you have this yeast imbalance, and that causes a lot of these issues. And now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, holy crap, that's exactly what you're talking about, because yeast is a fungus.
Yep, yeast. So anything that's
Holy
why
cow!
this is why keto works so well for people. Not necessarily because of the ketosis. Ketosis does its own thing,
But
but
it
you're
kills the
removing
yeast.
it removes yeast from your system, which is
Oh
a
my
fungus thing. So
goodness,
it's this subsequent side effect that nobody factored.
bro! Holy cow! What? You just blew my mind. I like crap, man. Seriously,
Yep.
like I'm like thinking about. Oh my god! So the past 5 6 days, I've been like eating pretty clean. Um, my everything's been clear for me, like my sinuses, everything, right? And then today I'm like nasally and congested. Like yesterday, I had like 3 peanut butter jelly sandwiches. Like yeah, I just had, and then guess what?
Peanuts.
The bread, the peanuts are
Bread.
moldy.
Peanuts are one of the worst nuts on the planet for mold.
What?
Yep.
Holy cow! And then sugar. There's sugar.
So you have sugar, you have bread, and you had peanuts. That's a trifecta. And now the next day, look at you, snarfy.
I'm like all effed up.
Our body's always talking to us. We're just not trained to listen to what it's saying. We don't speak that language.
Dude, I'm going back to curry, bro. I was fine on curry. I was eating curry for days, dude.
Curry
And then
for
I'm like,
days.
let me have some PB&J, and then
Yeah. Guys, look at this. Go to his website, his Facebook. He has a Facebook group. Join the Facebook group. Thank you, Rob. I love this stuff, man. There's a couple things I'm really a nerd on. It was on the Closers Olympics fun facts, right? Don't get me started about ancient cultures and belief systems, right? It's a whole different rabbit hole. But here's the thing. Right. So when it comes down to stuff, right? So when it comes down to stuff like this, guys, check out the Facebook. He does lives. You can ask questions. He's really good at getting back to him and answering them. Guy's a wealth of knowledge. You look at the guy, guess how old he is. Like when you see how old he is
what's
and how
his name?
sharp this Doug Kaufman.
How do you spell Kaufman?
Kaufmf. You got it? MANN, yeah.
I see his face. How old is this guy?
He's almost 80.
Holy cow.
Listen to him talk. He's as sharp as you and me with the way he talks. This guy recalls information like nobody's business. And he's in his mid to late 70s.
And
right?
he eats like that. He eats this Kaufman diet, of course.
He's 100% Kaufman. He's been on it for years. And he's like, guys, I get up and I go exercise. I do this, I do that. I talk about all these different things. He has different specialists come in. He talks about cleaning your air, clean this. And he knows his stuff. Watch his lives. He does 2 lives a week. You can go to his Facebook and see the old lives. You can go to his YouTube. He has a bunch of videos on YouTube. That's where I found the information about type 1 diabetes and how they started in giving them mold to give them diabetes. And it's just it's mind-blowing. So like for me, I start with this, and when I'm usually starting, I'll do a bone broth cleanse. Well, that'll change your life, right? Because the nutrients that exist in bone broth lead into something like this, and it'll be a huge transition.
So you like fast and have nothing but bone broth, and then you introduce this Kaufman diet food, and you're like good to go.
The way I overcame, so I had my appendicitis. Got to the hospital at 7, 8 o'clock at night. I was there at 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. They said, you need to see the doctor tomorrow. I'm scheduling you for a surgeon. I said, no, thanks. Can we try something else? Because I spent 5 hours reading up on it, right? And they were like, yeah, no, you can't do that. Not going to work. We don't do that. Not going to work. I said, well, it does work because literally every country on the planet does it except the United States. So can we just try that? They refused to treat me, right? Antibiotics, for the record, one of the worst things for your body, right? We overuse them like crazy, but they do have scenarios where they work. And so they wouldn't even put me on antibiotics. So I went home. I did a juice cleanse with anti-inflammatory juice. I ate nothing inflammatory. I ate only anti-inflammatory, and I did bone broth. And the next day I was 100% fine. Bone broth cleanses have always been for me a great way to recenter when I'm way off balance and put me in a start point to kind of take off. So you do it for a day. If you need something more, do bone broth and really, really good clean vegetables, right? So
no, I've done a 5-day fast before, and I only had bone broth.
Really? How'd you feel?
I had a lot of energy, and then by day 5, I was famished, and I had to.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah,
was
a good 3 days is usually good. Day 5, yeah, but you feel great. Bone broth has so many nutrients in it because of the bones, right? Because of the collagen and the proteins that are in it. It's really, really good for you. And then yeah, something like that. If you need to cleanse out, do one of these diets. So yeah, check it out, guys. Like he's got a lot of stuff out there. He knows way more than I do. But the reality is, again, our body's always talking to us, but we were never taught to speak that language, and so we just assume that we're supposed to live with these illnesses, and we don't have to. I don't think we have to.
you you got me thinking. I've had like 5 epiphanies in this podcast. This is probably one of the most enlightening closers corners we've had.
Yes. Let's go. Was this as good as Gandhi or no?
Dude, as the movie Gandhi? No, hell no, dude. I mean,
I
Gandhi.
mean, I can't go, right? Jesus.
I started growing this after watching that movie. Like that.
Very nice.
I saw he
Very
had a
nice.
beautiful mustache. I was like, I want to be more like Gandhi, and it doesn't. You can't get to world peace before starting the mustache, right?
That's true. No one's gonna take you seriously.
Nah, they won't.
Yeah,
Exactly. You need the mustache. You need a
100%.
beautiful groom mustache. Guys, shout out to Daniel Quijano. Thank you, Daniel, for being here, for elevating us and teaching us so much about how to take care of our bodies today.
100%. That's what I love about what we do, man. It's called the Closers Corner, but we talk about whatever needs to be talked about, and hopefully it
You
helps some people.
closed me on the Kaufman diet, dude.
Let's go, dude. Please, I want to see the screenshots. So that you be tag me in the Instagram story, or just text them to me. I need to see the pictures and your responses when you start looking at the packages. All of you guys can do it. Like, look at the packages, see if you see corn or citric acid, and find out how much is moldy stuff is in your house and you didn't realize it.
Will do. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Twitch. You guys are awesome.
You guys are dope. Love you guys.